You ever use Google Maps and notice how it just pulls in everything? Restaurant info, traffic,
Uh-huh.
sometimes even flight detail?
Yeah, it all just appears, doesn't it?
How does that actually work? It's got a lot to do with these things called APIs, these connections working behind the scenes.
Exactly.
And today we're going to dive into how developers make sure those connections are solid. Even before we see the final app.
Right. We're talking API testing. It's honestly super important for making sure software actually works the way it should.
Okay.
And we're looking at a specific tool today called Rest Assured. The sources we looked at, they explain what it is, why you'd need it, and kind of how you'd get started.
Think of it like checking the plumbing before you put the walls up.
Kinda, yeah, making sure the foundations are strong.
So let's get into it. What exactly is Rest Assured?
Okay, so simply put, Rest Assured is basically a Java library, a
Mm.
set of tools written in Java
Uh-huh.
that makes testing these specific connections, these REST APIs, a whole lot easier.
Easier.
Well, what's really neat is how it checks the information coming back. Yeah, it's efficient, even with complicated data formats like JSON,
Like the data for those restaurants in Google Maps.
exactly like that. Rest Assured can test if that restaurant data or the flight times or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
if it's being passed back and forth correctly between the systems.
Okay. Okay, so why is testing these connections, the API bits, why is that so critical? I mean, we just see the map, right? Does the stuff underneath really matter that much?
Oh, absolutely. Think about it. All those different services feeding data into Google Maps, or really any app you use,
Yeah.
they talk using these APIs.
Hmm.
If those APIs have glitches, or they're slow, or they send bad data,
Then the map shows wrong info or doesn't load.
precisely, the whole user experience can just fall
Okay.
apart.
Yeah.
Imagine Maps giving you the wrong closing time for a restaurant or a completely wrong traffic estimate.
That would be bad. Very bad.
So API testing, using tools like Rest Assured, lets developers find and fix those problems really early, way before the visual part, the UI, is even finished.
Saves time down the road then.
A ton of time and effort, yeah. Catching bugs early is always cheaper and easier.
Gotcha. Now, the sources mentioned something about how this used to be trickier, maybe needing different programming languages.
That's right. In the past, testing like this often involved more dynamic languages, maybe like Groovy or Ruby.
Okay.
And those might not have been in the main toolkit for, say, functional testers who were maybe more focused on the user interface side of things.
So Rest Assured using Java changes that.
Exactly. Java is, well, it's everywhere in enterprise development, so Rest Assured lowers the barrier. If you know some Java, you can jump into automating these back-end API tests. It makes it more accessible.
Okay, so accessibility is key. What's the main advantage of automating this testing with Rest Assured? Why not just click around and check manually?
Well, manual checking is good for some things, but for APIs, automation is huge. The main benefit is running these tests repeatedly, super fast, with lots of different data.
Like testing edge cases. What if the restaurant name is really long or something?
Exactly that kind of thing. You build up this suite of tests, and you can run it automatically every time there's a change.
Mhm.
It gives you real confidence that the back end, the core logic, is stable.
So while some people test the front end look and feel,
Others, using Rest Assured, are making sure the engine underneath is running smoothly, making sure the data pipes aren't leaking, basically.
right. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So if someone listening is interested, how do they actually, you know, dip their toes in, get started?
Well, the basic setup involves a few standard developer things. You'd need Java installed on your machine first,
Okay, Java.
and then usually an IDE like Eclipse, which
Hmm.
is just a place to write and manage your code.
Right.
And then you'd likely use a tool called Maven. It helps manage the project and all its dependencies, the other libraries it needs.
And Rest Assured is one of those dependencies.
Yep. You added in a special Maven file called pom.xml. That file tells Maven, hey, I need Rest Assured for this project.
And the sources even listed some specific dependency names.
They did, yeah. Things for handling JSON data, XML data, even for validating the structure of the data, which is pretty important too. Specific versions were mentioned, like 4.2.0 for some of those helper libraries.
Okay, cool. So let's sort of wrap this part up. What's the main thing people should take away from our deep dive into Rest Assured today?
I think the key point is that Rest Assured is a really valuable Java toolset. It takes something potentially complex, testing these crucial back-end API connections, and makes it significantly simpler and more automated.
Helping ensure that the core parts of an app actually work reliably.
Exactly. It builds confidence in the back-end stability.
And for you listening, even if you're not a developer, Knowing tools like this exist kind of gives you a peek behind the curtain, doesn't it?
Mm.
It shows how much goes into making those apps and websites you use every single day feel so seamless and just work.
Yeah, that smooth experience doesn't happen by accident.
Hmm.
There's a lot of testing involved, often using tools just like this.
So here's something to maybe think about. Consider the apps you rely on daily. How many different separate services do you reckon they're connecting to behind the scenes?
Probably quite a few.
Right. What kind of complexity does that introduce? And why would having really, really thorough testing be just absolutely essential before that app ever gets to you?